Thank you for joining us on the Winning and Selling Podcast. I'm Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute, and with me is Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems.
What is your strategy for making more sales this year than you did last year? If you don't have a well thought out plan, you probably won't hit your goals. With a good strategy, you'll make more effective phone calls, have better discovery appointments, and ultimately close more deals. Deals that will get you more referrals. But as it has been said, if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail. So if you don't want to fail, let Scott and I share some thoughts on sales strategy and other great ideas on episode 501 of the Winning at Selling Podcast.
I always think if somebody doesn't have a plan, any outcome will do. I think I've heard our founder, Steve Cloyd, mention that a few times, and I think that's true too.
I always think I'm lost, but I'm making good time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it was a great episode last with Ben Utek, wasn't it?
That was really good. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, I'd advise you to go back and listen. He talks about culture and how you can develop a great culture at your business. And I think you opened it up by saying culture eats
strategy.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So
right.
Or any other
for
meal.
lunch. Or
any other meal.
Yeah. You're beginning to sound like me, Bill.
No, I think it's actually the saying is breakfast, but that's all right.
Okay. All right. I always think when culture is not hungry, then strategy works. So let's work on that.
All right. Well, let's talk about the book club. Success Principles by Jack Canfield. We're on principles 6 through 10.
So many things are being coming into meaning with me as I'm reading this, because I've heard a lot of these messages before. I'm in my mid-50s. I'm on the second half of my life. And it seems like Jack Canfield, in his book, The Success Principles, is really defining a lot of things that I've been hearing in the past. And it's really great to be validated on things that I've learned and retain, and they're not new to me, and to be able to get some new ideas. So we're taking this book in some pretty big chunks for those of you that are playing along at home. And we're going to get into chapter 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 today. And on 6, it was the law of attraction. We've heard this. I think it's a bit of a mystical thing when we get to the law of attraction. It's something that I really had a tough time understanding. Or I understood it. I just don't believe it, Bill, to be really transparent.
Well, I don't think he called it the law of attraction. He called it becoming inverse paranoid. And I found it to be one of the most thought-provoking chapters. And I think it's all about how we look at the world and the situations that we find ourselves in. And he talks about W. Clement Stone, who was a mentor of his, who decided, I think that's the key, he decided that anything that happens to him had to be for the good. Now I've got to figure out how that's going to be for the good to me. And I think that's really good. It really made me think about how I respond to things. And I sometimes think of myself as a positive person, and I'm not that positive. So I found it to be very impactful to start looking at myself. And I know you've talked about this all the time. You talk about respond, don't react.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what this is all about, is how do I respond, not react to a situation. Oh, everyone's out to get me. Everything's going bad in my life. Instead, it's like, well, this happened. How am I going to make a good thing out of this thing that happened, right?
Yeah. And there must be 2 versions of the book, because mine does have chapter principle 6, use the law of attraction.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and there may be different versions, but it's probably this. It could be the same topic.
That's interesting.
So
you got a cheap book. You probably got that on sale.
I might have. Yeah. But
we'll have to check that in the future. I'm surprised by that. So if we put something down and it's not what we said as the chapter title, we'll have to look at that.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Let's move on to goal setting, because that's an important.
Yeah, I love this one. This is really important.
I didn't believe in goal setting.
Okay. Oh, come on. I mean, nobody believes in it, but everybody should do it. The problem is that 80% of Americans don't have goals, and that's out of the book, which I believe that. I believe that people, and I'm guilty of this. I'll be totally transparent with our listeners, is that I do have a bit of a survivor's mentality. I was raised in a way that I was not taught to thrive or to dream or to have goals. It was to survive. I wanted to know really how was some of my minimum needs going to be met as a child, and that unfortunately carries forth as an adult. And we're all inner children. If any of those that have read John Bradshaw's stuff, I mean, we're all inner children. So this is a really important chapter for me to be able to get my head around making a goal. And I always know that when I make a goal, I have a greater chance of achieving it. And one thing that he really stresses in this chapter is that if you don't make the goal, then think about the person that you become in the process of making the goal and achieving the goal or attempting to achieve the goal. You become a bigger, better person.
Well, I really do believe in the power of goal setting, and I don't do it often enough. And I find that very frustrating. Yeah, and I think this is what a book like this will do for you and I, Scott, who have read many of these things before. We're not learning anything new, but they do tend to hold us accountable to say, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? Why aren't you doing these things? And I don't know what it is in my makeup that keeps me from setting goals consistently, but it's very frustrating because I do believe in the power of them. Sometimes I wonder if do I not make goals and then I won't be held accountable?
I think that's probably subconsciously very accurate, very true.
So I need to commit to that more and go back and even set some simple goals. So I thought that was important, and it really did convict me in that area.
Yeah, a few things that I took out of this chapter is I hear salespeople on a weekly sales meeting, and I'd say, what is your goal for this week? And they'll say, well, to sell more. I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be two things when it comes to a goal. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Let's take it to a next level.
It's better than wanting to sell less. So that's
right, exactly. But this is out of the book. It says, it's really two questions: is how do you measure it? So how much, and then by when? So you want to sell more, okay, by the end of the week. Okay, how much more? So we have the deadline, but what is the number on it? So always think about when you're making a goal, how much and by when.
Right.
And another thing that I think was important in this chapter is there's three obstacles. One is the consideration. So you make a goal, then you have to consider, how are you going to do it? How are you going to make the time? How are you going to find the resources? How are you going to learn what you need to know to be able to do what you need to do?
So in other words, what is the payment? What's the cost of this goal?
Yeah, very good. That's another way of putting
it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I have to put time into it. I have to put effort into it. I have to put belief into it. And so if I don't want to invest those things, maybe that's why I don't want to. Maybe I'm getting lazy, right? In my dotage here. So I think that's good. And I think the next chapter, though, and I'm going to move us along because we get stuck in this.
Yes.
I think it's good because it really says, how do you hit goals that seem so big? And he talks about chunking it down, and you've got to break it down into its individual parts. I think the analogy I always look at is, don't ever think about how many dishes you've done in your life, right? If you stack all the dishes you've done in your life all up together, it would be a daunting task. But because you do, 5 plates a day or whatever that is, it's not so daunting. Things are able to be chunked down into that. So it's when we let things get to be too much of a mess that they become a challenge. Whereas if we do things a little bit at a time, and the other thing I thought I had, Scott, was doing these podcasts. This is our 101st podcast together.
Yeah.
And if we looked into the future and said, let's do this 101 times,
oh my,
and thought about how much time it was going to take and effort, we would have said, I don't think so.
Right.
But we do one a week, and now we've got a series of work that we can look back at and say, look, this is some good work that we've done.
Yeah. If I can add just a personal experience that I had a couple of days ago, I volunteered for Feed My Starving Children. And within an hour and a half, this group is a fabulous group, and they do such a great job of really demonstrating the commitment that the volunteers make on the lives of children in other countries. And within our particular group, and there are more than, one table working at it, we packed 44 boxes, and they said that we created 9,504 meals, and we fed 26 children for a year. Chunking it down, you look at that when you've just made an hour and a half commitment of your life and your time in our first world countries. When we think about stuff that's going on in Ukraine, oh man, do we have it good in the United States? We chunk it down and we look at the impact that we make in a small period of time on people that really need that. And that's the same thing with goal setting, is chunking it down. So I really love, these couple chapters here together.
Yeah. And I want to bring up the one part that he said that I am a big proponent of. He said, start your day with your big or your ugliest task, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked about that before. Get the crap out of the way so you don't have it hanging over your head all day long thinking, oh, I got that thing I got to do. And once that thing you got to do is done, it's like, wow, I can make phone calls, I can talk to people, I can relax and do other things that are maybe more enjoyable. So get that big or ugly task out of the way.
Well, you and I have the same approach when it comes to achieving a deadline or getting something done on time. And when we feel relieved, what do we want to do? We want to make calls. We want to go, oh, now I can start talking to people that I've been meaning to call for a while and start those conversations up again. It's just really rewarding. It is relief. It's eating the frog, as they say.
Right. And he says, eat that ugly frog first.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Number 9, success leaves clues. What did you take away from that chapter, Bill?
What I really thought is, do I have a good mentor? Do I have somebody that I can talk to honestly about my business and they can help me? And he talked about mentorship, but he also talked about books and audios and podcasts and videos. And I really believe, what are you watching? What you watch, who you associate with, and what you read and what you listen to. That's the power of association. And if you're associating with people who have low goals and low dreams, they're going to rub off on you. So even though it's frustrating sometimes for me to read a book on goal setting when I know I'm not doing it enough, it's better than not reading a book on goal setting and forgetting about it. So hold yourself accountable, hold yourself to a higher standard with what you're listening to, who you're associating with.
Yeah. A couple of things I took away. There's a Charlie Tremendous Jones quote saying you'll be the same person you are today 5 years from now, with the exception of the books that you read and the people that you meet. So keep those two things in mind. And one saying that I took away from this chapter is, you cannot change the people around you. You can change the people around you. So think about that, folks. That's tough one.
Find better people.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to go to chapter 10, and that's release the brakes, which I think is a big topic for you. So I'm going to let you go off on this.
It is. I mean, we need to, we, like I said, I come from a survivor's mentality, and I feel like I'm looking at different opportunities with more of a sense of risk and fear. And that's all conceptual. That's a belief system. That's based on my past experiences. Is it real? Absolutely, it's real. Is it true? It ain't true, folks.
Well, I was raised by an Eeyore.
And,
and a nice man. I love my father, and he has a lot of good qualities, but he was always looking for the cloud and any silver lining, right? Anything bad that can happen, it was going to happen. And it really stunted his growth, I think, and his ability to try new things, because he always thought the worst would happen from those new things. So good a man as he was, I think I got some of that. And that's what I fought against with these attitude books and self-discovery books for the last 40 years. I fought against that.
Isn't it always amazing? I read authors and listen to speakers, and the topic that they talk about is one that they needed the most help in their entire life. You talk about, you listen to somebody who specializes in managing adversity. You know what? They probably took on a tremendous amount of adversity early on in their life. I struggle with sort of a sales approach where I want to be able to be in charge. I want to survive. I want to survive and thrive. So I want to take control of my life, which I think sales is leadership. So that's what I spend my time in is getting into the sales, which is leading somebody to a better place, I think is what a really salesperson is. And that's where I want to go, is to a better place. So that's what I really work on. Some other things that they talked about, there were some people that, and I've worked with a guy one time, he made his goal by March. He goes, made my annual goal, sat on his hands for the next 9 months. Wow. And you know who beat him that year? Me, because I kept going. This is a tortoise and the hare story. And it's very accurate, is we have to continuously think about what are we going to do every single day, and to be able to commit to doing that, even though we have met our goal, make a bigger goal, make a better goal, and set it higher and keep going.
One of the things he talked about in there, and I thought he really spent a lot of time with, Scott, was positive affirmations. And I do have positive affirmations. I don't read them as often as I should. Again,
me either.
I have them written out, and I do think they help. I do think that they will help you get focused on those goals that you have. Put them on a 3x5 card, write them out so they fit on a 3x5 card, and then read them every day. Because this release the brakes, this thing you and I both grew up with, and whatever anybody else grew up with, those are deep-seated issues that are going to take a while to change. You're not going to change just because you desire change. You have to be intentional And positive affirmations are a way to develop the pull that allows you to break through those unbeliefs that you have.
Very true. Very, very true. Some people might think that that's silly and that's just hokey pokey stuff. It's very relevant. Think about the car that you're driving right now, to our listeners. And how long did you think about buying that car? And when you were thinking about buying that car, you looked for that car and you start seeing that car everywhere. And all of a sudden it became very uh, real because you saw other people driving that car, you saw the car, and then you ended up purchasing the car. And that is the same effect as an affirmation. As you see it, you start to look for it, you start to believe it, and then you start implementing it. And when you start implementing it, you end up getting the results that you want in life, which is because through a positive affirmation.
That's right. My son just bought a house and
Yeah.
swearing that he wasn't going to buy one. He was just going to start looking. But I'm not quite ready to buy one until all of a sudden they called us and said, yeah, we put an offer in and they took it. And
Yeah.
so,
Wow.
when you start to do that, as you said, with the car or shopping or whatever, you're drawing yourself into that world of belief that says, I can own a car, I can own a home. And I start to believe that it will happen. And then all of a sudden I make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Great stuff. Great stuff.
Excellent. I think it's a great book, but it's going to challenge you as it's challenging Scott and I.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. This segment has been brought to you by The Art of Prospecting, your guide to get in the door by Steve Kloida.
I'm Ron Lehman, and I want to tell you about one of the best sales books I've ever read. The Art of Prospecting, your guide to get in the door, gives you the tools and techniques to fill your pipeline and achieve more sales success. The author is Steve Kloida, known as the prospecting expert, and this book proves it. So if you want to learn from the master, get The Art of Prospecting, your guide to get in the door. It's available at theprospectingexpert.com. Just click on the Buy Book button.
So recently, Scott and I have been working on a project helping an organization develop a sales strategy and a selling process. So it's been an enjoyable challenge to work with Scott. And this challenge is working with Scott. The enjoyment is what we come up with. But anyway, it's been really good to take all the experience that both of us have had, combining 75 years of selling and using it to help an organization transform itself. But as we've been working on their strategy, it made me really consider how many times I've coached individual salespeople and how few of them have any kind of a selling strategy. They have they have goals that they want to do, but they haven't really thought out how they're going to get there. How about you, Scott? Have you seen that?
Very true. And I think that is really based on the leadership of the company. The leadership has got to be able to provide a culture, to provide salespeople to be successful, a strategy for them to be able to follow. They need to be able to have the resources, the direction, and they need to be able to have the training in understanding what is the problem that the salespeople solve. What is the problem that the company solves? And salespeople have to go out and obviously be a problem finder. But when you think about being a problem finder, you have to follow a strategy as to who's the best fit, who's the perfect industry, what's a realistic timeline for a sales cycle, how can we shorten that sales cycle, how can we reach some objectives at the same time as following a strategy. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I just got 4 easy steps. They're not easy steps, but they're 4 steps to that I think are the key steps to developing a strategy. You alluded to the first one: know what you sell.
Yeah.
What is your value proposition? What do you excel in the marketplace, and how can you truly bring value to those customers? If you don't know that, you're going to become a commodity.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for salespeople to uncover the cost, consequences, and risk that a prospect experiences in the case of inaction. If prospects do nothing, which most salespeople compete against, salespeople compete against prospects doing nothing. And when a prospect does nothing, what is the cost, consequence, and risk that they have when they don't have a solution? And then the solution sticks to a problem, and the outcome is a value proposition. And look at some of the, I'm listening to our listeners. Think about some of the products and services that you buy. Why do you buy them? What do you find most valuable when you buy them? It could be a product or a service. And think about what would happen if you don't have that product or service. And first, think about your cell phone. Now, talk about a value proposition. There's no wonder that Apple's able to charge $1,100, $1,200 for a phone, because think about what your life would be like if you didn't have it. That's value.
Yeah. And I think the second step then is, and this is aligned with that, who's your best customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can start to figure out what kind of business, what kind of person just loves what you do, and they love what your value proposition brings to the marketplace, wow, that's who I should be going after. That's a much easier sale. I always tell new salespeople, it's a lot easier to sell somebody if they already believe in what you do,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're just looking for you to be the best option. But if you have to convince them that a cell phone is, to use your example,
Mm-hmm.
if you have to first convince people that a cell phone is a good idea, then you have to sell them your cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a longer walk.
It is.
If you already
very
find
much.
people who are looking for cell phones, now you just need to convince them that yours is the best option, the best price, the best return on investment, whatever that is. So look at who really loves what you do, and then start to use that as a model for who you're going to choose in your territory or in your whatever, however things are broken out for you. Who's the first companies that I want to start talking to?
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, the best company to sell advertising to is a company that's advertising.
That's right.
Simple.
That's right. They already believe in advertising.
Right. Yeah,
you have to convince them that advertising works. They know.
Yeah.
So I think that's really true. And then from that best customer, I think the third step is you want to develop a targeted list.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who do I want? I think too many salespeople contact a company one time,
right,
and then they said no, or not now, and I never talk to them again. And I keep going through these huge lists that I buy of potential maybes, and who knows if they ever do anything. So target a list. Maybe it's 100 companies, maybe it's 200 companies. You want to get 4 or 5 different names in those companies and really start working that targeted list of people who love what you already do. And now I'm going to have a long-term and a consistent contact base with them, rather than a whole bunch of people that I talk to one time. Mm-hmm. Because that everybody's a customer, boy, that gets real confusing.
That is, and it's not true. It's just simply not true, as much as companies like to follow that philosophy. But I love those two together: best customer and a best fit, and to be able to really work on being persistent and determined and committed to getting in the conversation with the right person for them to say no to something that's going to make their life a lot easier and better.
And so part of your strategy then becomes, how often will I contact them? Mm-hmm. What other, I will send them emails, I'll send them notes. Maybe I'll send them some kind of a creative package that will really catch their attention. I can only do those things if I've narrowed down my list to a manageable level. Mm-hmm. If I've got 5,000 potential customers, it's too big to do any kind of a targeted work for them. So when you want to do something creative, you want to have that targeted list to work from.
Yeah. And you have 4, so you got one more?
Yeah, have a compelling sales story. That sales story builds on the successful sales your company's had in the past. I think there's nothing more powerful than saying, we've worked with this company that's similar to yours, and here's what we were able to do for them. And can we do the same thing for you? Can we work together to have the same kind of success together that you've had? And this is where I think the challenge of strategy moving toward tactics. Mm-hmm. Because when we start to get into things like how many times you're going to call and who you're going to call, we're starting to get into the tactical part of the sale versus the strategic part of the sale. And there's always kind of that barrier that has to be crossed when I've moved from strategy to tactics. I've moved from what am I going to do overall to what am I going to do specifically in each particular conversation that I have. So this may be where that starts to happen, is in the sale itself. Now you're getting tactical versus strategic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you? What are some of the thoughts you had thinking?
Well, I believe this is an important topic. Strategy is the foundation of all activities, objectives that you want to reach, and the results that you get. And sometimes strategy and objectives are the same thing. And I'll get into some examples here. Is when we're thinking about calling customers, what percentage of our time are we focusing on new customers versus existing customers? So that is a strategy to spend more time attracting new, and to be able to get more new into your pipeline, and then be able to maintain the ones that you're already in touch with.
Good thought.
Percentage of upselling is a strategy of what percentage do you want to have every single month of upselling to a higher product, a better product. Think about the product mix and the diversity within a product mix. And here's one thing that I think is really important.
There may be some companies where you have an inside sales or a sales development team, and they take over the customer and they're more focused on the upselling than you are.
Sure.
So that can be a possibility at your company.
Very much. Yeah.
But if it's not.
Yeah. And that's a culture strategy within a company.
Right.
So, I mean, hopefully through experience, they figure out what works best and how everybody works together with it. And I think the more context that a company has with a prospect or the prospect has with a company, I think the better it is to be able to maintain that long-term relationship.
Yep.
Gateway products, I think, are really important. When they buy this, what's the next thing that they're going to buy? Well, they're going to probably buy this, and then they're probably going to want to buy this, and it's all add-ons. Think about the old 35 millimeter cameras. And once you bought a camera and you got the base unit, then you got the 50 millimeter lens, and then all of a sudden you want to get a zoom lens, and then you want to get, a flash, and then you want to get, a rewinder, or, I'm going back, folks. I know what is that? I mean,
made that clicky sound and
yeah.
So
you think about all the different things that you add on to a single lens reflex camera. You don't have that now because it's on a chip.
All right. Well, let's bring this into the 21st century.
Okay.
Scott.
All right. I just wanted to appeal to a diversity of our listeners, because some of them are relate to what I'm talking about.
Well, you use a cell phone analogy. I don't know if Best Buy makes much money on cell phones, but they certainly make money on cases and chargers.
Oh, that they do.
And all the accessories that come with it. And even Apple decides every 5 years to change their plug-in so they can sell a whole new series of plug. This is called the lightning plug-in. Now it's better.
New cord too.
That's right.
I'll just add one more thing is when you think of a strategy, think about how can you shorten your sales cycle? How can you prevent some of the things that delay it? How can you fix the system to reduce the amount of objections in your sales cycle to be able to shorten it and increase the closing ratio? By doing that, you are practicing a strategy.
Which means you need to think through what's the reason that they're hesitating.
Yeah.
What are the steps that are taking them longer? And am I doing things to cause that to happen? Sometimes salespeople say things
they certainly do.
And do things to cause customers to go, oh, maybe I should wait on this.
They talk them into a sale, and they talk them out of a sale. And they talk them into a sale, they talk them out of a sale.
It depends on where they stop talking.
Yeah, exactly. Once they buy, stop selling. It's just how many sales managers just want to say that to their salespeople, hey, if they bought it, don't buy it back.
Okay, hand them the contract. Hand them the contract. Let's move forward. Yeah. All right. Exactly. Good. Any other thoughts on this?
No, great topic, Bill.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. So think about what kind of strategy you want to develop and put it in. Even if your company doesn't have a strategy, doesn't mean you can't have a strategy. You are your own business as a salesperson. So go out there and make a strategy for yourself.
Our golden nugget today is the significant problems we face cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that created them. By, drum roll please, some of you know it. Yes, that's right, Albert Einstein. I think that's really related to strategy, is when we think about how do we fix a strategy, it needs to take different thinking to be able to fix it. What do you think, Bill?
Well, I keyed on that word thinking, and I was considering the book Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, yeah.
The key part to that is think. And so sit down and think through your situation. The goal setting chapters in the success principles, chunking it down, all that is thinking about your situation and coming up with a better way to do that. Don't get trapped in old thinking. Find a mentor, find someone who can help you break out. And that mentor can be a book, it can be a podcast, can be whatever you want, but think and you'll grow rich.
Exactly.
So to find out all this information, to get the resources that we have, our show notes, winningatselling.com.
Next week, we're going to have a guest. Kristen Brown is going to be on, and she's going to be talking about how energy sells. It's going to be a great topic.
Yeah.
And next week, we're going to be covering chapters 11 through 15 from the Success Principles by Jack Canfield.
Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.